811. You know, I got back to the United States at 11 o'clock this morning Eastern Time, and there's the American crap media. Crapping all over the place. Predictable, but nonetheless disgusting. Like a choir. Not a single independent thinker among them. Not a single one. 98% attacking the state of Israel, which is doing nothing to bother anybody. They're not rushing anybody's fences. They're not trying to provoke war with anybody. They're not going into somebody else's so-called territory and on and on and on. And to listen to the media in this country. They are propagandists for Hamas, just as they were propagandists for Iran, just as they were propagandists for North Korea and Cuba. The Democrat Party and the media in this country stand with our enemies. And predictably so, and repeatedly so. They stand with our enemies. The media in this country, one repeats the other, and they give you lies. It's not just fake, it's flat out lies, affirmatively lying to the American people. Now, I'll tell you exactly what was planned on the Gaza Strip, and I want to talk about the new embassy a little bit, but I want to finish with this first. An unofficial translation up there on Right Scoop and all over the internet, if the media would read it, but the media won't read it because the media have a narrative. And by the way, the last 48 hours, how many American reporters have been reporting from inside the Gaza Strip? They sit safely in Israel or in the United States. How many European reporters are in Gaza reporting on this? None of them. How many American reporters? None of them. Why? Because they'd be hanging from a telephone pole. That's why. Hamas controls Gaza. They have a vice grip on the population. They brutalize their population. They summarily kill anybody who speaks out against them. They torture each other. There's no reason why that piece of land, prime land, just so you know, on the Mediterranean Sea, couldn't be a Mecca, so to speak, of economic prosperity. Just the way little Hong Kong was at one point, before China got its grips on it. All the money that pours in to Gaza. Why is nothing happening there? Because they use it to build tunnels. They use it to buy rockets. 50,000 people on this border with Israel. 50,000 people on the border. Israel is about 13 million people. We have 325 million people. That would be as if 1.3 million people were on our southern border, northern border. You pick it. And among them, untold numbers of terrorists. But the entire rioting is controlled by Hamas. These aren't popular uprisings. There's no such thing as popular anything in Gaza. It's all orchestrated. Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood, just like Al-Qaeda. Hamas is funded by Iran and Turkey. And in the past, maybe even now, Saudi Arabia and the United Nations. You know who provides electricity to Gaza? The Israelis. You know who provides most of the food to the people in Gaza? The Israelis. You know who provides most of the cement and steel to the people in Gaza? The Israelis. 800 to 1,000 trucks going into that territory every single day, except when they're on the attack. Have you heard a single damn reporter say that? When's the last time an American reporter went into Gaza and actually did a report on what's going on, who's in control, what they do to their own people? Never. Because they never come out alive. Did they tell you today and yesterday how many rockets they have, Hamas, aimed at Israeli cities? You know, the last 36, 40 hours, give or take, when I was in Israel, you know, I was taking cabs, and there was a cab driver, an Egyptian and Muslim. And I didn't say anything. But he wanted to tell me as an American that he's lived in Israel for 35 years. And he said, if the Palestinians actually wanted peace, if they'd show peace. Now, this is a Arab Muslim from Egypt. He said the Jews would give him everything. The Israelis would give him everything. But they don't want anything, Hamas, except the elimination of that country and every single person in it. And so our reporters sit in their air-conditioned offices at 30 Rock, on Capitol Hill, at MSNBC and CNN and NBC and CBS and ABC, with their new haircuts and their $1,200 suits and their $300 ties and their flashy loafers. And they sit there and pass judgment on people who have to deal with this, life and death. Why is Hamas building tunnels into Israel? Because they have plans for a subway system? No! To kill people. To kill people. This rioting was planned months ago. It's been in the media. They talked about it weeks ago. And yet here we are again. It's not the fake media. It's worse. It's the Hamas media. It's the Iran media. It's the North Korea media. They're all those things on the American media. But in the end, it's the crap media, because you never get the facts. And our enemies, all over the world, whether they be terrorists, or whether they be fascists, whether they be communists, they rely on our media. They rely on the Democrat Party to undermine our country. And, of course, to undermine Israel. The closer Israel gets to the United States, the more they trash Israel. If the Jews were victims, if they couldn't defend themselves, like so many decades ago, then you'd hear, oh, the poor Jews, the poor. Now that they have a country, they defend themselves, they've built up a military, and they're not taking any crap. Now all of a sudden, they're the perpetrators. Is Israel on a list of terrorists? No, Hamas is. Hamas is so bad, the other wing of the Palestinian Authority doesn't get along with them, Fatah. And Fatah's headed by a terrorist who funded the Munich attacks on the Jews at the Olympics. They don't even get along with Hamas. Yes, but, you know, the Israelis have all these high-powered weapons. And the people in Gaza, they're throwing rocks. Let me read to you this unofficial translation of a document that was secured, I believe, about 2 days ago. It's up at Right Scoop, and they do a great job over there, of the Hamas leadership telling the people what to do in this spontaneous protest. Monday morning will begin with a gathering at 10 a.m. along the Jacor route from Beit Hanan until Rafah. A starting time will be announced, and after this time, all demonstrators will start going in one mass with stout heart towards the fence until it's knocked down. The march will be accompanied by loudspeakers that will inflame the crowd and prevent the group from being dispersed. The advance will be made behind bulldozers that will take down the fence, clearing a path through it for the demonstrators. The demonstrators are requested to please act in accordance with the demand to bring a knife or a gun, to hide them under their clothes, and not use them except where there is need to capture soldiers or residents of Israel. It is required not to kill them, but to hand them over to the resistance forces, as this is an important bargaining chip of which Israel is afraid. It is necessary to take actions to chase the snipers from their positions. It is necessary to expose their positions and plan actions against them well. Don't bother yourself with the wounded or dead. That will be taken care of by the medical teams. The protesters' job is to act wisely on the ground and follow the instructions. Oh. So they force their people into these actions. Not all of them. Some of them are very excited to participate. But they force children into these actions. Remember the last war with Gaza? Where do they put their headquarters? Under elementary schools? Remember? Where do they put their missile inventory? Under hospitals? You see, What our media do not understand or do not care to understand is that for Hamas, every human being is expendable because it's a war. Every one of their citizens, expendable. Children and women first. Children and women first. Why? And I'm going to tell you why. And I don't mean to be provocative, but I'm going to tell you why. The media in our country, hell, the worldwide media and the Democrat Party in our country, just like all the other left European parties, you know what? They have blood on their hands. You know why they have blood on their hands? Because they encourage this activity. Because Hamas watches them. The more children that are killed, the more the media turn on the Israelis. The more women killed, the more the media turn on the Israelis. So they push the women to the front. They push the children to the front. You and I look at this and say, holy, these terrorists are unbelievable, what they do to their own people. The media, they say the Israelis are unbelievable. Look what they do to these people. Now, Israel is an extremely powerful nation. It's one of the finest militaries on the face of the earth, despite its very small size. Do you think if the Israelis wanted to wipe out the Gaza Strip that they could do it? What do you think the Syrians would do? What do you think the Iranians would do? What do you think the Russians would do? What do you think the Chinese would do? They would just carpet bomb day in and day out, day in and day out. Did Israel attack the Gaza? No. Did Israel attack them? No. Hamas is attacking Israel and using its people to do it. And our media, the fifth column, is assisting them. And our media and the phony commentators and the pseudo-intellectuals and the comics at night and the Democrat Party members, they are the ones with blood on their hands because Hamas knows that they can be played to. And they're playing to them. It's a disgusting spectacle. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Hamas views armed resistance as the only method to achieve its goal. Article 13 of its charter. Compromise or peace negotiations are not an option. They are a contradiction to the principles of the Islamic resistance movement. I'm quoting, abusing any part of Palestine is abuse directed against Islam. This is from the Great Clarion Project. Hamas views arms resistance as the only method to achieve its goal. Period. It's tied to the Muslim Brotherhood that gave it birth, then the Egyptian Brotherhood, a break off of the Muslim Brotherhood, but that's the mothership. And I want to remind you, the Muslim Brotherhood has all kinds of offshoots. Al-Qaeda, Islamic Jihad, Hamas. Also, it's the same organization that murdered Sadat, among many others. The Israelis know their neighborhood. They know exactly what's going on here. Pressure for a two-state solution. So they give it a try in Gaza. They have an election. One election. Not one since. Hamas takes over the country. Or I should say takes over that area. That's your example of a two-state solution. A final solution. The media in our country and the Democrat Party stand with Hamas. They stand with the regime in Iran. They stand with the regime in North Korea. They prove it time and time again. There's something wrong with Israel. There's something wrong with the United States. There's something wrong with President Trump. There's something wrong with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Over and over again, the same thing. And these frauds who call themselves reporters know damn well what's going on. You, the American people, you know. Thank God for alternative media. Thank God for competition in media. Or we'd be stuck with Andrea Mitchell. And people like her. These aren't reporters. These are leftists. These are leftists. And so what's going on? Oh, and I love this. They're using snipers, the Israelis. Oh, snipers. Oh, my God. Why do they have snipers? They're not using tanks. They're not using bazookas. They don't have machine gun nests opening fire because they're trying to limit the death and the damage. Unlike Hamas, which is sending kids and women to the front. We don't know if these numbers are accurate, how many are killed and how many are wounded. And the Israelis, all of a sudden, they're on defense when it comes to the press. And Hamas knows it. They know how this works. They don't give a damn about life. People, folks, you need to remember, the suicide bombers, Hamas started that in the 1990s. They initiated the use of suicide bombings in April 1994. Hamas did. And they've killed thousands of civilians using this tactic. And they train and teach and propagandize to their children, starting at very young ages, that this is the way to Allah and this is the way to liberate their people. They build these underground tunnels into Israel to be used for attacks. Egypt has cut off the Gaza Strip. Egypt. They want nothing to do with it anymore. And that territory, at least in the recent past, was Egypt's. And so here we are, the predictable left-wing kook, pro-Hamas media. And let me repeat it again. These fools on American radio and TV and American newsprint and websites, these fools on the left are causing more death and causing more bloodshed. They're giving Hamas exactly what they want. Propaganda.